Did Joseph Smith regularly sacrifice people's pet dogs? And could a walking stick made out of Joseph Smith's casket actually heal you? Did he also get smacked in the face by a toad? In this episode, we will talk about the magical worldview and oddness of early Mormonism. Hi, I am Kai Van Leuven. I spent over 30 years in the Mormon church, and this is what I did after leaving.
I'm Di Beals, and I'm a pastor at Venture Church in the state of Washington. I am your friend, and I am so curious what on earth you're going to teach me today.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. We should have recorded this on Halloween. There is a lot of weird stuff in this episode. And I first want to start by answering the question: would Joseph Smith kill your dog?
I hope
Di,
not.
are you a big pet person?
I do. I have 2 dogs. They're so cute.
Oh, man. This is where you're going to know that I am a sociopath.
Uh-oh, you don't like animals.
I don't like
I
pets.
didn't either until I had one, and then my heart softened.
I have lots of them.
No softening has happened.
No softening
Okay.
has happened. But you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I always knew there was something weird with that guy. But not as weird as some of the stories that we're going to get into today. So would Joseph Smith kill your dog? I want to set the framework here and just talk about the magical worldview of the founder of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Joseph Smith.
Good job getting that in. Good job.
Get it in. And what the worldview that he had, what had to deal with folk magic. It had to deal with summoning spirits. And what's interesting as a Mormon who grew up in the church, when you look at early church history through his lens, which was a magical lens, a lot of the stories that seem to only work in his time, in Joseph Smith's time, that have nothing to do with the church now, start to make a little bit more sense for people. You look at, and we're going to get into some of those stories today, but I think it's important to maybe start with the stories that you've never heard. So Joseph Smith was a treasure digger, and I'm going to talk about this, and a lot of people have heard this before, but if you go through this whole episode and you have heard every single one of these things, I will tip my cap to you, because there is some weird stuff that I just recently found that I think is incredible. But to start out with, he was a treasure digger. So that would mean that he would go around and look for buried treasure in the ground. And it's not that he would just be like with like a metal detector, right? And say, oh, I believe it's right here. And they would dig a little hole, and it would be really cute. I actually have a picture of what it would look like. They would actually dig these shafts.
Oh.
So do you see this picture here, Di?
Yeah.
Where there's this hole in the ground. It's almost like a mining shaft.
Wait, did they feel like they were led by the Lord or something to a location?
They felt like they were led by a spirit.
Okay.
So I don't know how you see that one, Miss Religious Teacher. But they felt that they were led to this, and Joseph Smith was hired and commissioned by these people. So he would pitch them, right? He would be like, I feel that there's
He's such a swindler. Oh my word.
Dear heavens. Your words, not mine. Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
So he would convince these people that on your property, or maybe they would have a feeling, hey, on my property, there is buried treasure, and it's guarded by a guardian spirit. You know how to look into a stone and see where this is buried. So he would point people, Joseph Smith would point people in the right direction to, according to him, I'm going to put right in air quotes, where this treasure was hidden. Now, where the dogs come in, there would be rituals that they would do in order to summon these spirits and to have these spirits tell them where the buried treasure was. And one of those rituals was to kill a dog.
Did you know about this? Is this only recently you've discovered this? Does the average Mormon
one
know
would
this?
hope, or you would think I'm a real psycho. Yeah, this is all new. After leaving the church, you're just like, what? He would, it's so mind-blowing, right? Like, what could you even, it doesn't even seem real to me. If I'm just
where do you
being
find the
honest with people.
sacrificial dog? It's not the homeowner, right? The homeowner doesn't have to give their dog in order to get treasure, or the person hiring him.
I think some of them were pets.
Ugh.
I know.
Wait, I have another question.
What lengths are you going to go for buried treasure?
Is this sort of, did it hit you? Maybe you're going to get to this, but did it hit you like a safeguard of, if you don't sacrifice the right animal, then the spirit isn't going to tell us where it is? So that's his safeguard. If he couldn't find the treasure, because how many times did he find treasure? Then, well, you did something wrong. You could put it on the other person.
Okay,
go ahead. Go ahead. I'm too logical for this game.
Why go to the starting line when you can go right to the finish?
Sorry. Okay, build up to it. That was just a little teaser.
Yeah. So let's read this this quote by Hyle Lewis, who was a cousin of Joseph Smith's wife. I'm not even going to say first wife, of Joseph Smith's wife, Emma Smith. So it says, the facts are that the sacrifice of white dogs, black sluts, maybe that's the origin of that word, black cats and such, was such an indispensable part or appendage of the art which Smith, the embryo prophet, so talking about Joseph Smith here, was then practicing. He claimed to possess a supernatural power of second sight, which we could go down that trail if you'd like, or to see things at a distance and deep underground. And his frequent reference to the enchantment provides that he was a conjurer, a sorcerer, which Webster defines as an enchanter. And sorcery was witchcraft or intercourse with the devil. So we have no reason to doubt the truth of the statement about the white dog and the black slut, and something of that kind took place each time the enchantment removed the treasure. It is hard to believe that men of common intelligence could believe that Smith could thus see and believe in his conjuration, so that he could do this. Well, how could anyone believe this? Be so foolish to spend thousands of dollars in those days, right, in such a way. But Smith translated his Book of Mormon mostly with this same peepstone and hat. And it is just as hard to believe in this inspired translation as to believe in the facts and efficacy of his dog sacrifices. Smith's translation of the Book of Mormon by means of the same peepstone and under the same inspiration that directed his enchantment of dog sacrifices, it was all by the same spirit. What? So the same method, the same methodology that was used to, I'm going to say, look for treasure, because he never found any, is the same methodology.
He didn't even get lucky one time?
No, isn't that crazy? I mean, just wild. And so for those of you looking at this, I did put a dog on the picture on the slide, just for visual representation.
A real specific dog.
Yeah. I don't think he was slaughtering a dolled up poodle. Okay. If I'm just putting it out there, but yeah, so there's one story. Another one. And I actually really like this analysis that was given, because he's like, dude, this guy's a total shyster. Okay. Anyways, I think that's a really good one. So they had another one where they killed a dog, and this poor dog's name was Trey. So rest in peace, Trey. He was also killed and sacrificed. And he says, how vivid was the expectation when the blood of poor Trey was used to take off the charm. So to, speak to this guardian spirit. And after all, they find their mistake. So they didn't even find anything off of it. Another time, Joseph Smith slaughtered a pet to, it even had a name, poor Trey. Okay. And then here's the last quote, which this was done on a really famous farm, I thought. This was done on the Newell K. Whitney farm. I didn't put the reference in here, but it says that Joseph Smith, while he was digging, that he procured one thing and another together with a dog. And can I say this word? The bitch was offered a sacrifice, and blood was sprinkled and a prayer made, but no money was obtained.
Why is that in there? Why that why that little parenthetical comment? That made it better?
That? No money was
no
obtained?
Money.
Well, they're digging.
Oh, they didn't find
treasure.
any money.
They didn't find anything.
My first thought was Joseph Smith didn't obtain any money for this one. But
for killing the dog. No,
right.
It has to do with actually they weren't able to find the treasure in the ground.
Again.
Okay. So
that should be the next parenthetical moment again.
You're so, I don't even know what parenthetical means, but that's great.
In the parentheses.
In the parentheses. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, well, I know what parentheses are. So this is the thing. We have, it was said so well by Joseph Smith's wife's cousin. Wow, that's kind of down a trail. But the same methodology that was used to get the Book of Mormon is the same thing that Joseph Smith used to look for buried treasure. This is actually the stone that they believe he used. So this is not just a rando stone.
Where is that stone?
I believe it wasn't hidden in a vault for centuries, or not centuries, for decades. It was hidden.
Wait, do they still use it? Does the head prophet use it?
So that's the weird thing. He doesn't.
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of this disconnect from Joseph Smith's magical worldview. And as we're going to find out, some earlier prophets and what the church does today. The church today is a total watered down version of what this used to be, almost as a shell of what it was at one time. And so you have this process where you could easily put this stone, the seer stone, and Joseph Smith looking into a hat, plus Joseph Smith looking into a hat equals the Book of Mormon. But you could also put the seer stone plus Joseph Smith looking into a hat equals animal sacrifice and them digging for buried treasure, right? It's the same methodology. It's the same. I've said methodology too many times. It's the same process. Formula that happened. And I just find that really wild to think that Joseph Smith never found buried treasure. And yet we tout the Book of Mormon as a fruit of Joseph Smith, when the method that he did it, I think, is at best, I don't give any supernatural power to a stone. So I'm just like, it's weird. But at worst, it's kind of satanic, right? And has these elements of really weird undertones. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Di. Do you give any special power to a stone that somebody looks in, or what are your thoughts on that as a Christian pastor?
I think this is already talked about in the Bible as divination or witchcraft or occultism. I think it is You are not consulting God when you look at a stone in a hat. But I'm curious, if you would have been presented with this formula when you were fully committed inside the church, what would have been your reaction? Could you imagine that?
Oh, I know my reaction would be like, that is so weird and fake. Like, that is
What?
so not real.
You would have thought this wasn't an actual legitimate citation?
Yeah, I would have just been like, yeah, that's not really the church I know. I don't know. You're making things up. There's no way
Which
they
part? The
killed dogs.
dogs? Okay.
The dogs, even the stone. I mean, we didn't know about the stone. We didn't know about treasure
Oh,
digging. We didn't know about any of this stuff. It was just in the spring of 1820, a young man stepped into a quiet grove of trees looking for answers. Like that's my like, oh, he was just a young, inquisitive boy who decided to pray what church to join. There was no like, yeah, fresh off of murdering animals. This, this
right.
guy finds the book, like no one would. And so there is this smoothed out, whitewashed, correlated history that isn't really church history. It's just
Mhm.
what the church tells you. Oh, and I think that there's some deception to this, and I'm going to get into that a little bit. I think there's actually a lot of deception of how can we make this palatable for people.
Yeah.
And I just think that's wrong. Like, if you believe in this magical worldview, full send, go for it. Like, your prophet should still be doing that. If that's your
Yeah.
origins, go
Agree.
for it.
That's a logical statement.
If it's not, and it's something completely different, then say, hey, that used to be a part of our history. It's not a part of our history anymore. And that's
Well,
kind of where
you
I'm
can't
at.
say that though. It's not a part of our practice now. You can't say it's not a part of our history anymore because that is deception because you're trying to erase something from your history.
Yeah, you could, but you could disavow it. You could just be like, no.
Yeah,
Like,
you could say, nope, we don't like those methods. That's not what we practice now.
which I think the church should do.
Yeah.
And with the right amount of pressure, they will. Okay. So let's get into this. We have this story of Joseph Smith going and getting the golden plates. Okay, so this is in our smoothed out, whitewashed history.
I don't
Is
know what the
Joseph
golden
Smith?
plates are, but carry on.
Oh, I love it. I love how honest you
And
are.
you have a frog in the picture, so I'm really curious.
Okay, so the gold plates were what Joseph Smith, I won't even say used because that isn't even correct. But what Joseph Smith obtained so that he could go and he used it to translate the Book of Mormon.
Is
Kind
it
of.
like a code, like a decoder or something?
Okay, so the Book of Mormon is the writings of the principal ancestors, the Native Americans here well, not here, but on the mainland, on the American continent. Wow,
wrong native people.
wrong native people. But the Native Americans in America,
Mhm.
okay, so they wrote down their record according to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They wrote down their record. They preserve that record of their dealings with Jesus. And then Joseph Smith obtained that record and translated it. Okay.
With a decoder plate?
With, well, as we come to find out, with a stone and a hat is what he used.
Oh, right.
But the church always told us that Joseph Smith turned the pages of the Book of Mormon and he looked at the Reformed Egyptian, which is not a real language, and he looked at each letter and translated it by the gift and power of God.
Hold on.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
originally written in Reformed Egyptian. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's not a real language.
That's what the Native American language was at the time? Egyptian? Some
Well, because oh man, I feel even so dumb hashing this out, but let's do it. So these people left.
they immigrated
They
from
left
Egypt.
from Jerusalem.
Wow, they had quite a journey to bring their
Yeah.
Egyptian from not Egypt.
Should Elder Van Leuven come out? About 600 years
I don't want to. Okay,
before the coming of Jesus, Nephi and his family left, and they took a boat from Jerusalem. Well, not technically Jerusalem. They had to go, to a water source.
to the port of Joppa.
There you go, Di. Throw it out there.
Been there.
And they sailed all the way across what would be the Atlantic Ocean and landed in the Americas. And they kept a record of this the whole time on golden plates. Joseph Smith then went and discovered these golden plates, right?
Written in Egyptian from a Jewish guy.
Yeah. Reformed Egyptian, Di. Duh. No, it's not a real language. It's literally made up. No one has ever heard of Reformed Egyptian except for Joseph Smith. And so he goes through, and part of this is where these two worlds collide. Joseph Smith's treasure digging and him being led to the Book of Mormon. So Joseph Smith is first met by one of these guardian spirits, Moroni, right? Who is guarding treasure, gold plates, hidden underneath the ground. On September 21st and 22nd of 1823. Now, what's significant about September 22nd is that it is the fall equinox. So if you believed in this magical worldview, that's the equinox, a perfect balance between light and dark. And they believe that is the best time to talk with these guardian spirits. So it's no coincidence that from 1823, every year, 1824, 1825, 1826, 1827, each year, Moroni visits this guardian spirit guarding this treasure, visits Joseph Smith, and tells him more about the gold plates hidden underneath the ground. It has to do with his folk magic worldview. Does that make sense?
Yes. Where are these plates?
Well, he had them for a while, translated the Book of Mormon, even though he never looked at them. So this is what is so confusing about the gold plates and why it actually makes zero sense at all. Joseph Smith did not read over the gold plates to translate the Book of Mormon. As we're told, there's pictures. I wish I would have brought some pictures, but there are pictures that show Joseph Smith like turning the pages of it. When we know that like firsthand accounts say that there was that the gold plates, I'm going to put that in air quotes because I don't think they actually ever existed, that the gold plates sat on the table covered in a cloth. And what Joseph Smith did instead is he looked into a hat with where the stone was there, and he read off of it word for word every word that's in the Book of Mormon. Okay.
I can at least understand why people would hire him to look for buried treasure, quote unquote, if he's claiming that he has found golden plates that he was led to by an angel that were under the ground. That at least makes more sense to me.
So that is not, according to the timeline, that is not correct, though.
Oh,
so
Joseph was doing buried treasure before he found the plates?
He was doing it kind of before and during, like, because we have to think 1823 to 1827. So you have a 4 or 5 year gap, right? And so he's doing treasure digging actually in that time. Like, hey, I'm being met by this spirits, and then they're going to lead me to this thing. So people are really, kind of hearing about these stories and interested in them. And he's also getting jobs at the same time. I believe he was taken to court in 1826 for being a fraud, for treasure digging. But I think let's get into this story. So there are this episode could be like 3 hours long.
Yeah. I'm trying to refrain from all the questions.
Yeah. So I have this story of a toad, and then I have this question of Alvin's death. So Joseph Smith is telling people about this story. Like, I was visited by the angel Moroni, as he later became. I don't know if he was that in the beginning, but I was visited by this guardian spirit. This guardian spirit is giving me instructions so that next year I can go and get the gold plates. Okay. So he's being told this story that this angel is kind of a moron, okay, in hindsight, because he says next year bring your oldest brother Alvin Smith. Well, between 1823 and 1824, Alvin Smith dies. So they're like, well, how are we going to bring Alvin Smith? So I'm sorry, angel, you are not very omniscient. Okay. You are kind of a moron. Okay. So he's kind of scrambling on who do I bring next? He tries to kind of coax this guy. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Anyways, that guy doesn't want to come do it. Then he brings his wife, and they do these, his soon-to-be wife, and they do these rituals. They get dressed in all black. They get a black horse. They do all of these things to, like, I think that are specific instructions that are given by the angel Moroni. Okay. When he finally gets the plates, and this is where I wanted to pick up, and this is the frog here. This is actually a cane toad. If you're similar, if you know about frogs, cane toads are pretty gnarly toads. I had some in my pool here that I had to ship out, and he's given very specific instructions. He's saying he was told by this angel Moroni, this very dumb angel. Okay, let's just be honest. Oh, the angel Moroni is the same angel that's at the top of every temple, the gold person. Do you know what I'm talking about, Di?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I've heard of the angel Moroni many times. I know of this angel. Yes.
Okay. He's getting called out by me today.
Okay.
So he gives them very specific instructions. When you get this box, that the plates, the golden plates are in, you cannot set it down. And if you set it down, there will be consequences. Okay. So this is what happened to Joseph Smith. He took up the box, right? That had this gold plates inside of it, but fearing that someone might discover where he got it, he laid it down. He's doing the no. He's not supposed to do that. Okay. He laid it down and put it back on top of the stone, which is where it was hidden. And he attempted to take it back up, but he was hindered. This guardian spirit told him, no, you can't do that. He opened up the box and he saw something like a toad. So you see my frog there?
Yep.
He looked in it and he saw a toad, which soon assumed the appearance of a man. Okay, so it's a man toad. Okay. You can't make this stuff up. And it
yes, you can.
Struck him on the side of the head. So this thing punched him. Okay.
Where is this story from? Where did you find this?
This is
whose testimony is this?
Oh, this is Mormonism Unveiled. So this is actually a contemporary source that was published. It was like published in the 1830s, I want to say.
Okay.
Drop
and
in
Joseph
the show
Smith
notes.
was Joseph was alone for this experience, right? He didn't
He was
have
alone at this point. I believe
Okay.
that Emma Smith, his wife, was down with the horse, dressed in black.
So
Okay.
did Joseph Smith tell this story and someone recorded it, or did he supposedly record this, or
Yeah,
did
I
he
think.
tell people?
Well, this is the thing with Joseph Smith's treasure digging is there's always multiple outs. There's always multiple
Yeah,
ways
yeah.
that he says, well, I didn't get the treasure because you didn't
Right,
sacrifice the animal right.
right,
I
right.
didn't get the plates this year because I
I put the
set them
box
down
down. Yeah, and
as
the frog
opposed to blah
punched
blah blah.
me. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just an out, right?
It's
Okay.
it's the Wizard of Oz. It's all smoke and pyrotechnics and all this exciting stuff to hide that it's just a little man behind a curtain pulling some levers.
Exactly. So we have this man toad that punched him on the side of the head, but he was not discouraged at trifles. So that means he's not like going to be easily dissuaded from getting this. So again, he stooped down and he tried to take a look at the book, but the spirit struck him again. Boom, man toad. Mean right.
The
right?
toad is now a spirit?
No, the toad is punching him in the face.
Yeah, but you said the spirit struck him again.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of weird. I don't know what that means. I don't know why they
Okay.
said spirit. I don't think they're talking about Angel Moroni. I think they're talking about man toad.
So the
Struck him
toad
again.
is a spirit. Okay.
Okay, and knocked him 3 or 4 rods and hurt him prodigiously. So 3 to 4 rods. I looked up what rods was. I don't really know. I'm assuming that means like a walking stick, but it knocked him pretty far, and hurt him as he did that. So
wait, can I just insert? This is me
Yeah.
being snarky. This is him in the woods punching himself so that when he goes out and tells this story, he has physical proof on his body. Okay.
Yeah, what
carry
was
on.
that? Liar, liar with Jim Carrey? Do you
Yeah,
remember
where
when
he's like pulling his own
punching
tag
himself?
and punching
Yeah.
himself.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So there's this magical worldview mending with what we know as church history, because we do know the church does confirm that he went back on these dates on the fall equinox. They do say, yeah, that's when he did it year after year after year. But you get the backstory of why that date and what were some things that happened. This is another telling of that kind of that same story. And I think this gives one of these, probably both of these stories are not true, but they were this gives another data point for the same story or the same type of story. And it's that Joseph Smith was shocked while he was trying to grab these golden plates. And this is actually from the churchofjesuschrist.org. I just pulled this today from the Ensign article. And it says, and I added in his name so it says Joseph reached for the golden plates and felt a shocking pulse through him. He jerked his hand back, but then reached for the plates twice more, and it shocked him each time. So this is actually chronologically, this is actually the same event happening. So as opposed to the person who heard about it as a toad and maybe the tail got larger, this is the same idea. He did something wrong. He tried to reach for these plates and they shot. And I actually think it gives a little bit of validity to the toad story. It at least says that something supernatural happened as he was trying to obtain the plates. Okay. He says, "Why can I not obtain this book?" Joseph Smith cried out. And this is what that dumb Angel Moroni said. "Because you have not kept the commandments of the Lord." I wonder why people think their relationship to God is so conditional. Joseph turned and saw Moroni. Sorry, that was my own notes. At once, the message from the night before flooded his mind, and he understood that he had forgotten the record's true purpose, and he started to pray, and his mind and his soul awoke to the Holy Spirit. All right. So conditionally, he had not done what God wanted him to do, which I think is a very, very Mormon idea. So I put a little funny thing on here. This is just me messing around, but maybe this is what Moroni said. This would have actually been kind of prophetic if he said, you can't hold it because it's electric, talking about the plates. Boogie, woogie, woogie from Moroni. Anyways, for all of you who are old like Di and I. Okay, so we're going to talk about now some of these 35 minutes in. Wow, that took longer than I anticipated. We're going to talk about some of these elements that existed even later on into the formation of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so we have Joseph's Jupiter talisman. Now, a Jupiter talisman would be like a lucky charm, like a lucky rabbit's foot or something else that gives you some supernatural power. And so this charm each one has an associated gift that's given that you have when you get this lucky charm. And the Jupiter talisman, which is believed to be something that Joseph Smith was wearing when he was killed. So when Joseph Smith was murdered, it's not like something he put away. He was wearing this Jupiter talisman. It's one of the items. Apparently, when you die, they count the items and they record the items that you have on you at that time. And the Jupiter talisman was something that he had on him. It was supposed to give you a decisive victory over your enemies. Man, there's some irony in that one. After getting murdered in a jail, a decisive victory over your enemies to defend you against machinations, which that's not a word that we use very often, but that means schemes by your enemies. So like these schemes of people trying to get at you. And to inspire the wearer thereof of the most remarkable confidence. So you are walking around. Imagine this. Hey, this is the TRT of the day, right? Got you all jacked up. You have all the confidence in. No comment on TRT, guy. You got all the confidence in the world, and you. I shouldn't have. You have all the confidence in the world. And you have this. So 1 out of 3, he probably had all the confidence in the world, but it did not defend him with a decisive victory over his enemies.
Weird that it didn't defend him. Weird.
Yeah, it's like those things are complete BS. Oh, that's weird. Okay, on to the next. So I wanted to show that it didn't just stop with one dude's kind of weird ideas. It didn't just stop with Joseph. Brigham Young, the second prophet of the church, for those of you not so familiar with the church, he had a bloodstone. So a bloodstone was something that was supposed to protect you against when you went into dangerous places. This is actually a picture of one it's in a museum. Brigham Young's bloodstone. And that he would put it on when he had to go into a dangerous place. Again, he believed, I mean, it's so mind-blowing to think that a prophet of the Lord would need something like that. But here you go. He believes. Di, where is your bloodstone? Do you have a bloodstone?
I don't know. I might have to get one. I'm going to go out in the woods after this and look for a rock or something.
Yeah, okay, there you go. What's interesting about Brigham Young's bloodstone is that it's believed to have been handed down from Captain Cook, the explorer.
What?
So Captain Cook gave it to someone with the last name Brown. I don't have the notes in front of me. Gave it to him, and then he was Mormon, and he gave it to Brigham Young, this bloodstone.
He was Mormon?
He wasn't. No, it was a gift that he gave to a Mormon, and then that Mormon gave it to the prophet of the church.
Okay.
So yeah, kind of a
I'm
interesting
really exercising self-control because this could be a multiple hour episode because I have so many questions.
Ask away. Do you want to know something?
Cook? Come on.
Do you want to know something interesting about Captain Cook? Did you know he came to Hawaii? So if you don't know, I live on Hawaii. And you know he named the Hawaiian Islands.
I do think I've heard that.
I
don't know how he got connected to being What?
Sandwich Islands. Could you imagine saying you're going on vacation to the Sandwich Islands?
Hmm.
It's kind of a funny little thing. Whenever I think of Captain Cook, I think of he probably loves sandwiches because he named Hawaii the Sandwich Islands. So, anyways, yeah. So another magical worldview,
Mhm.
extra biblical, obviously,
Right.
thing. I never heard about the bloodstone until I started researching it this go around. Okay. So now we kind of get into the weird. I never heard this healing cane story. And I'm going to put the citation of this, but this was a BYU student actually did an article on the canes of Joseph Smith's caskets. And he went through what was his, this is by James B. Allen. He went through and talked about, I'm sorry, that is not correct. The Canes of Martyrdom, Stephen G. Barnett, and I'm going to link that in the show notes. This idea of the canes that were, so the origins of the canes is Joseph Smith is murdered, right, in Carthage jail. Brutally, right? He is shot multiple times, right? And falls out of a window. So brutally killed. They put his body on these carts and then they ship it to, I think they shipped it to Nauvoo. They shipped his body to Nauvoo, right? These carts are covered in blood. Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith's blood. From those carts, they made these walking sticks and canes, right? From the blood of Joseph, which...
Okay. It's like a relic.
Yeah, I mean, when I say the blood, I have a hard time saying the blood of Joseph because I want to say the blood of Jesus, but okay. That's not me virtue signaling. That's literally like what I think of.
Yeah.
But these people, so there were a bunch of these gifts that were made with the carts that hauled Joseph Smith and Hiram Smith's bodies back to Nauvoo.
Kind of grim. But yes, okay.
That's why I wanted to record this on Halloween. So you have, so this is in the life of Heber C. Kimball, which is like his biography. Okay. And this is what he put in his biography. How much would you give for even a cane that Father Abraham had used? So we're talking about Abraham in the Bible, right? Or the coat or a ring that the Savior had worn. So we're equating it pretty darn high here.
We are really high at the top right now.
The rough oak boxes in which the bodies of Joseph and Hiram were brought from Carthage were made into canes. So walking sticks, whatever, and other articles. I have a cane made from the plank of one of those boxes. So has Brother Brigham. So we're talking about Brigham Young here. And a great many others, and we prize them highly and esteem them a great blessing. I shall hand it down to my heir, with instructions to him to do the same. And the day will come where there will be multitudes who will be healed, and blessed through the instrument of those canes. And the devil cannot overcome those who have them, in consequence of their faith and confidence in the virtue connected with them.
Those are bold claims.
Yeah, I think he's writing checks he can't cash, but we're going to find out on that one. And then he said further in this speech, Heber C. Kimball has said, in like manner, I have sent my cane. So he didn't send himself. Dr. Richards used to lay down the old black cane on a person's head, and that person has been healed through its instrumentality by the power of God. Okay, so he is not backing down. He is making two of these claims. It's pretty morbid to think about that and to think about how you felt. But let's take it up one more notch. Apparently, Joseph Smith's hair was removed, or parts of it were removed, and it was put inside the ivory knob that is on the top of these canes.
Is this well known?
No, not well
Okay.
known at all.
Okay.
This is like, what in the what? I put a picture of Heber C. Kimball. You can't hear it. You can't see it because my symbol, Jesus for Mormons, is covering it. But that's just what he looked like. I don't know. I always think it's interesting to see what people look like. Heber C. Kimball's an interesting dude because after Brigham Young had kind of taken the reins of the church, Heber C. Kimball was like his right-hand man for like 20 some odd years. So you hear his name a lot when you're in the church and you're like, who was he? I actually was like, was he a prophet? I knew he wasn't, but his name is thrown around quite a bit.
Okay.
So I guess we can summarize this slide by saying praise to the man, Joseph Smith. They believed that he had these extra spiritual powers. Oh my gosh. Die.
That's a picture. If anyone's listening and not watching, that's a great picture right there.
Die. You may or may not know this. That is the current prophet of the church.
Looking into a hat?
This is Russell Nelson.
Okay.
And I actually feel sad for him. I'm just going to be straight up. I'm going to be honest. I feel sad that he has to go back and try to make sense of all of these things. Like, can I just be, and I'm not saying that in a like, oh, he's so dumb. Oh, no, I'm not. That's actually so far away from what I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think the story that he was probably told as a convert, as somebody who's probably giving a ton of time as a volunteer in the church, going up the church hierarchy and ranks, the story he was probably told is the same story that I was told. And so as I see him as probably when he did this, a 95-year-old man looking at a stone in a hat to try to have it all make sense, there is a strong element of just sadness where I just look at him and I'm just like, I think you're trapped by this system, dude. Like, I'm just being straight up, and people might not like that. I don't really care. I think that, how is this of God? Like, how can he view it that way? It's not. It's just it's a lucky magical charm. It's a taking your hat and turning it upside down and putting it on your head at a baseball game. It's not. It's just superstition. And so to feel that it's come up so much now in the church that he even has to speak to it, I
he's had to speak to it?
Yeah, so this is from a video that he did.
Okay.
Gosh, I wish I had the video where he talked about the translation process. This happened in the last few years, where he talked about how Joseph Smith had to look into a stone in the hat to translate the Book of Mormon. And people are like, what? I always thought that was fake, right? And so I think that, I don't know, I just want to maybe highlight a few more elements of how it finds its way, the folk magic and the folky part of Joseph Smith, Brigham Young, the early founders of the church. Di, you are going to love this one. When someone is baptized into the Mormon church, you have two witnesses that stand. And they're trying to make sure that every part of the person goes fully submerged under the water. If even like if a little girl, think of an 8-year-old girl, if part of her dress floats on the top of the water, she has to be rebaptized.
Like right then?
Right then. The witnesses who are watching it will be like, nope, she didn't pass. You got to throw her one more time.
Whoa.
If a pinky is up, that sinful pinky. And Mormons believe that in baptism, all of your sins are washed away. That's literally like they're all washed away. Okay. And you come up and that is the most perfect you are ever going to be. Okay. So kind of in line with this folkiness, right? Like you have to do this ordinance exactly right. Just like how you had to kill the dog and you didn't kill him right. And so that treasure just kept sinking in the ground.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Okay. The other time is Mormons take the sacrament, what you might call communion.
Mm-hmm.
And the sacrament prayer is said word for word. Okay. You have to say, "Oh God, the eternal Father, we take," man, I couldn't do it anymore. What the heck? I used to be able to rattle that off. But anyways, you have to say it exactly word for word. See, like right there, I would have had to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to repeat it. So imagine a 16-year-old boy and he uses a different word. He doesn't say the or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it so that you can't actually pass out that sacrament because it wasn't done exactly right. That's a little superstitious, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay. Di, do you have any of those things in your church? Not done exactly right.
I'm a big believer in grace.
What? Grace? Doesn't that mean unmerited favor? Doesn't that mean you don't have to do everything right? Huh, that's weird.
Yep.
Jesus? Who? Okay. So I did this little slide, and I don't normally quote people because I don't know. But I thought that this is from the ex-Mormon subreddit. Gosh, I hope this video finds it onto there because that's kind of who I hope my audience is. But this is a really interesting story. And so, Di, when you go through the temple, Satan, right? Lucifer, has huge speaking parts in the temple. And one of the things, I'm just going to get into this. So one of the things, he has this speaking part that is actually terrifying if you are Mormon, if you are ex-Mormon, if you've been through the temple. He says, this writer says this, basically everyone who has gone through the temple has given their souls to Satan. Wow, that's quite the claim. He says, and this is what Satan says, "I have a word to say concerning these people." So in this scene in the temple, Satan is looking out on everyone who is about to make or who has made covenants in the Mormon church in the temple that day. Do you get what I'm saying? He's looking out at the audience. Okay. And he says, "I have a word to say concerning these people. If they do not walk up to every covenant that they make in these altars at this temple this day, they will be in my power." Now, Di, I want to give some context to this without like going into all of the weird things of the temple. But you pretty much covenant to be perfect.
Oh.
Right? Living up to and that's what this dude kind of, or gal, I don't know, it might be a gal. It doesn't say FTW Stoic. Hey, you made it on the podcast. But it says, well, who has realistically lived up to every covenant they've made in the temple? Not even loud laughter, so laughing too loud, which is a weird covenant to make. Or
that's part of the covenants?
Yeah. Or every unholy or impure practice. Di, I've had a lot of unholy and impure practices, okay? Let's just throw that out there. Everything, all of your time, talents, and blessings have been given when they are requested by the church. You never missed a ministering assignment. So that used to be old home teaching. We won't go down that trail. Okay, then. Now you are in Satan's power or his power. Okay. And he says, And you know what? I agree with this person, and I think even you'll agree with this. Good thing it's all Masonic cosplay and it doesn't actually have any power over you.
Yep.
Preach it, brother. So,
but it's a
I think
very
it's
controlling picture that's painted. I mean, this is how you control people and get them to behave, is fear.
Sure. And I think it's like terrifying though, because this is the thing with all of this, okay, people. And I know that people who are maybe ex-Mormon have a certain view, and people who have never been Mormon, they'll be like, how could you believe all of this? It's not packaged this way. If it was packaged this way, either A, no one would join it, or B, the people who do join it would be some real weirdos, right? Like, let's just be honest here, okay? And so I think that the church has to whitewash their history. They have to put these elements in there just a little bit at a time, and maybe tell you what might be faith promoting for you, and do all of that. But I think it's important to say it's all garbage. I think it's important to say that. I mean, I think we'll laugh about it and we'll make fun of it and we'll say, like, how weird is it that I believe that? But at the same time, it's all made up and it's all garbage. And I think it's just important to say that and to bring it to light.
And I think the part where I feel a lot of compassion for Mormons or former Mormons is, you already said it, you don't learn all of these things up front. And so if you're spoon fed a little more information, a little, another month in or a year in or whatever, and you're so far in and you're so far invested and your relationships are invested and you've chosen to believe and you've had this experience where you felt the confirmation to believe, then what's one more thing? Like, well, am I going to throw it all away because of this one thing that I don't understand? Or so I have a lot of compassion because you're in it so far.
Yeah, like you say, okay, I believe that whatever. I know that Joseph Smith was the prophet of God. Okay. I'm not going to let this story that may or may not be accurate of a toad man punching Joseph in the face. Like, I'm not going to let that derail my testimony. Okay.
That one's
like,
kind of big.
Yeah. It's just like, okay. And it may or may not be true. And I could, discredit the sources, and I could do this. And I could do, okay.
Yeah.
Which I think happens. We call that mental gymnastics, right?
Yeah.
You could do that. I think this is an important question. Some would say that there's this idea of milk before meat. If we're talking about the Apostle Paul, he talks about this idea of milk before meat.
Sure.
And that this idea that if you are really strong in the church, oh man, and you believe it with all of your heart, you shouldn't be dissuaded by these things. You have all of the meat. Why would you let all of these things take you off of that path?
Well, the milk before meat has some logical component to it, which, just like a kindergartner, you're not going to teach them, chemistry or physics or something. They have to learn how to tie their shoes. I mean, there is that's where that concept comes from, is you're not going to feed an infant meat. They have to be able to digest milk first. And so there is an element of faith and growth and understanding. This is way past that. This is not meat. This is, hey, let's get you in, and then you might discover some of the wacko stuff, but you're so invested. And I think that those are two different things.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess the question is, and this is probably the question that I had fresh out of Mormonism, like, what weird stuff are you going to do, Die,
Yeah.
when I go to your church.
Yep. Yep.
Like, I've already kind of experienced this ladder of weirdness,
Yep.
right? Like, I went on a mission and that was kind of interesting. And then I went through the temple and that was weird. But I'm like told like that's super spiritual and I need to get all these things out of it. And so I guess I think that kind of, I think that the elements of it where you feel a little bit tricked and you feel like
Mhm.
you're in a situation where it wasn't what you expected it to be.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I was kind of always looking around the corner for that as well.
I
of
mean, someone who's brand new, never been to church before, walks into Venture on a Sunday morning, senses something that they're told that's God, that's God's love or his forgiveness for you. We're probably not going to say, "Hi, nice to meet you. Can I also explain substitutionary atonement or the Trinity?" Like those are just concepts that person is they're just trying to understand what is this feeling of being loved. But we're also not going to throw in a bunch of, well, I don't know, maybe it is wacko to somebody, but we don't have a history that's steeped in magic.
Yeah, to me, it's two different religions, right? A magical worldview is a certain religion. Like Joseph Smith wearing a no, sorry, Brigham Young
Brigham
wearing a
Young.
bloodstone and Joseph Smith wearing a Jupiter talisman. Like your source of strength, your
Yeah.
source of, I don't know, strength might be the wrong word, but
Protection,
protection.
divine
I mean,
insight. Yeah.
you're making a choice of like, hey, it's actually this other thing.
Yeah,
It
it's
kind
a
of makes
smoke
me,
screen. It's back to the Wizard of Oz. You're saying there's God, but it's a bunch of smoke and mirrors when really underneath it, that's none of that is seeking God.
yeah. And you could say it's the same as garments. I actually just made that connection, right? That these garments are actually what protects you,
Mhm.
right? They'll be a protection, a shield, as long as you don't defile them. So you have these elements that I think are just magical and not in like a Disney good way. They're magical in a, two different religion way.
And
And
they're
I
built-in excuses because if you did something wrong or didn't use them correctly, then therefore that's why they're not doing what they're supposed to do. It's your fault.
sure. Yeah. And I think a lot of we talked about that in the last episode. If you didn't catch that, you might want to catch that episode. But I think it's really important to just say people can gaslight themselves on this. And
Mhm.
I do want to answer the question, would Joseph Smith kill your dog? The answer is yes, he would. If it led him to. And I think that might be a character reference in and of itself. I just want people to be kind to themselves. I don't want them
Yeah.
to like feel that, oh my gosh, I did this wrong thing and now I'm disconnected from God. Or maybe it leads you to say, I don't believe in God at all. And because I didn't follow these folky traditions and
Mm,
I didn't do everything exactly how I was supposed to do it,
right.
that's not really the God that I worship. I would like to think it's not the God that Di worships, that
For sure.
we are very imperfect people, and we do a lot of imperfect things, and we're just just seeking relationship with God.
And God's
So
grace is enough.
God's grace is enough. Preach it.
Mhm.
Okay. So on that note, hey, this is a weird episode.
That was a lot of weird history, weird stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
But hey, this may stir up questions or thoughts or comments. We invite you to email us at jesusformormons@gmail.com with any thoughts or questions, or if this stirred something up for you. And as always, we would love your feedback, your reviews, and that you share us with someone else. Hopefully, you're
Yeah.
enjoying it.
Yeah, definitely. And appreciate you guys listening. Love you guys. And until next time.